4, 3, 2, 1.
Cue music.
This is Movies First with Alex First.
A cheeky gangster flick with attitude set in the west of Ireland, Pixie is a bloody delight, and I do mean that literally. As the body count mounts, the star of the show, Pixie O'Brien, played by Olivia Cooke, bats her sexy eyelids and schemes away. We, like all who come into her orbit, a mere putty in her hands. Pixie is the adopted daughter of a gangster who fell out with a bunch of gun-toting priests, led by Father Hector McGrath, Alec Baldwin. Her beloved mother died nearly 4 years ago, when in her early 40s, and Pixie is the apple of her father Dermot Colombini's eye. For all of her charms, she has a dorky sister, Summer, Olivia Byrne, and a stepbrother, Mickey, Turlough Convery, who can't stand her. Pixie's planning to raise hell to get back at those who got to her mum and hightail it to San Francisco when the proverbial hits the fan. Her former boyfriend, we're talking 6 months back, Colin, Rory Fleck Byrne, is convinced he can win her back and get rid of her latest beau. Colin and a mate Fergus, Fra Fee, get wind of a big drug haul and burst in on a peaceful meeting of priests, or so it seems. Then all hell breaks loose. Meanwhile, Frank McCullen, Ben Hardy, has his eye on Pixie. He and his best mate Harland, Daryl McCormack, are given the nod by their friendly, small-time, neighbourhood drug-dealing mate Daniel, Chris Wally, that Pixie is hot to trot, so to speak. In the middle of the night, 2 a.m. to be precise, Frank knocks on her door, leaving Harland in the car to take his turn thereafter. Only Frank's best-laid, pun fully intended, plans come a cropper, while Harland suddenly finds himself dealing with Pixie's ex-boyfriend, who's carrying a firearm and is quite prepared to use it. The outcome of that is hardly what either of the mates expected. Suddenly, in their possession is 15 kilograms of MDMA. In pursuit on what becomes a road trip are the O'Briens and the gun-toting priests. In the lad's corner is Pixie. Or is she? For the word devious doesn't cover the half of it. Let's face it, she could charm the scales off a rattlesnake and the reptile wouldn't even know it.
You're listening to Movies First. For more, like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
While watching Pixie, I cast my mind back to the impact of another couple of crime comedies, Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, that was released in 1998, and In Bruges, which came out in 2006. Those Guy Ritchie and Martin McDonagh films, respectively, really captured the imagination with their moxie, and so does this. While not as sophisticated, Pixie has some delightful turns and surprises. That gets down to the script by Preston Thompson and Barnaby Thompson's direction. The story moves along at pace and keeps you engaged throughout. There's no shortage of characters, but undoubtedly the star of the show, who hits it out of the park, is Olivia Cooke. This is her vehicle to fame. She's fresh, sassy and oozing class, maintaining a twinkle in her eyes throughout, as the picture demands. Her sense of comic timing is exemplary. Ben Hardy and Daryl McCormack do the job as a couple of lightweights out of their depth. The landscape and cinematography are breathtaking as Pixie and co drive through the Irish countryside. John de Boorman is responsible for the latter. Pixie is a wild ride, well worth taking if you don't mind the excessive violence that the vehicle requires. It scores a 7.5 out of 10.
You've been listening to Movies First with Alex First.
Available at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your favourite podcast player. You can also stream on demand at Bytes.com.
This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.